Morning, everybody. Morning. Morning, everybody. Thank you for all showing up this morning. Didn't take long to spend the night last night, did it? We're going to open up today our meeting and ask Leader Hughley to open us up with a word of prayer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. Oh God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come. We come at this moment thanking you for your many blessings. We thank you for the fresh new mercies that you have given us this morning. We ask now for your wisdom, and we ask for extra measure of courage as we deliberate the important issues facing us today. We also ask you, Father, that you bless the families that we have left behind, protect them and keep them all safe, and keep us continually in your care. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Okay, for folks that are wanting to ask for your legislation today, listen up just a minute. Listen up. If your bill came out late last evening, it may not be on the blue sheet or the yellow sheet. So if it's not, you need to come back in the morning and ask for it. So anything that you ask for today, it needs to be on either the blue sheet or the yellow sheet, or see us in the morning. Okay? Thought that might cut down the line some. I don't believe we did. Okay. All right.
Stubborn lot over there.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead. I couldn't see who was over there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the committee. I bring to for your consideration House Bill 185. You'll find it's the fifth bill down on the second page. And you will likely recall that I have presented this bill before this committee about 3 weeks ago. It was recommitted to regulated industries to fix a couple of mistakes. One, a technical error. There was some outdated language as relates to fingerprints, the fingerprint requirement for the licensing. The language used in the bill originally was not current. So that has been corrected on lines 363 to 369. And then the second change was made, a small change made at the request of the Department of Public Health. They asked for a carve-out. Just to backtrack real quickly, if I may, just a reminder, this bill modernizes and streamlines the licensing requirements for dietitians and nutritionists. The language is 30 years old and in dire need of updating. So the carve-out is for the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, known as WIC. The Department of Public Health asked for that carve-out, and we were happy to oblige. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, that is the bill in a nutshell, and I ask the committee for your favorable consideration. I'll yield for any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Don't see any questions. I can't see who's next. Come on up. When you present, please inform the committee what page and where it's on the sheet so they can find it and make it move quicker. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And ladies and gentlemen, my bill is 671. That's going to be the first bill on page 7. And the LC number on that is 5000982. This bill was brought in last session by Representative Tim Fleming with Floor Leader McDonald and presented, but it timed out. We didn't make it to the floor in time, so here I am. So what this bill does is it protects children from sexually explicit or lewd performances at venues across the state. It does not restrict the venues from occurring, but it provides that to attend these performances, you must be of or over age 18. Minors cannot be admitted even if accompanied by a parent or guardian. The bill outlines fines for venues that violate these requirements. In lines 41 and 52, the Department of Health may impose a $50,000 fine for the first time and $100,000 for each subsequent fine. Lines 53, 59 says that that the venues are not liable if a minor comes with what is we would refer to as a fake ID, that they are not liable under that principle. Also, the Department of Revenue may suspend or revoke license if alcohol is sold at these venues with a minor in attendance. Again, this bill is not to restrict venue performances. Its intent is strictly to protect and restrict attendance of minors from events containing sexually explicit performances as outlined in Code 1612-100.
Okay, got a question for you. Whip Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author of the bill, while I certainly appreciate the intent and think everyone wants to ensure that children are protected, there has been some concern raised that, given that OCGA 1612-102 subsection 5, the definition of sexual conduct includes homosexuality, that this bill could criminalize a same-sex couple holding hands in a public venue. Is that your intent?
Thank you for the question, and no, that's not the intent at all. In fact, there's no discrimination in this bill whatsoever. The venues can still take place, but as outlined in 1612-100, sexually explicit is specifically about genitalia either being touched or exposed.
Would the author be open to further amendment to ensure that there is no discriminatory effect that may result from this legislation?
With all due respect, there's no discrimination listed on the bill, and this is strictly about protecting the children.
Again, as under current state law, the definition of sexual conduct includes homosexuality. I think there are some attorneys that are concerned that, again, this may lead to discrimination against one of our vulnerable minority communities here in the state. So I hope you'll be open to continuing to work and perfect this legislation. Certainly, I would be open to doing so with you.
Okay, thank you for your input. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to suggest y'all have a conversation and answer some of those questions offline if you don't mind. Okay, you pass? Okay, good. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My bill is on the blue sheet, page 5, HB 512, which is about the 7th bill down. HB 512 addresses the challenges that homeowners face when they are governed by an association. Specifically, it caps the amount that the association can charge homeowners for a closing letter. And second, it provides for alternate dispute resolutions before a lien can be placed on the property. That's the bill in a nutshell.
Okay, don't see any questions.
Thank you.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. Thank you for hearing my bill this morning. I am on page 6 in the blue sheet, halfway down, HB 626. I'm working off a substitute, LC 570261S. This bill modifies the way we keep sexual assault kits in the state. It takes out strikes 5 words from the code, no less than 20 years, and replaces it with 30 years. That's it.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Jones. Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm working from the blue sheet, page 7, the 6th bill down, HB 718, LC number 590125. This bill is providing that the first week in April is dedicated as Women's Golf Week in Georgia. The first week in April. Thank you for your favorable consideration.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Don't see any questions. Representative Osteen.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My bill is found on page 6. It's the last on the bottom. It's House Bill 662, substitute LC 462000S. What this bill does is simply provides that rural hospitals that's been classified as a rural emergency hospital can participate in the Georgia Heart Program.
Okay, don't see any questions.
Thank
you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am on HB 566, the very last one on the 5th, page 5. This bill will protect artists from AI-generated replicas. Currently, our copyright law only protects original recordings by artists, but not computer-generated or AI-generated replicas. We are seeing this more and more now, and so Georgia needs to get ahead in order to protect our artists. and having their voice and visual likeness used without permission. This is about individual rights. If they want it, they can get permission, so it's not a complete no right to use. However, they need to get permission in order to do so. We are also having a registry set up with the Secretary of State for those artists who have passed, so that they can register and make sure that they have those who want permission can go to the Secretary of State and find information in order to get permission. And any violators will be subject to civil penalties, and it will just follow our current civil statute.
Okay, don't see any questions, thank you. Oh, excuse me, you do have a question, I'm sorry, Pro Tem.
It is not a governor's bill. Thank you.
Okay, no other questions, thank you. Representative Silcox, Chairman Silcox.
Mr. Chairman, my bill is not on the sheet, but I'm happy to come back tomorrow if you'd rather me just come then. It's not on the yellow or the blue sheet.
Okay, we'll see you in the morning.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
Good morning. On page 6, halfway down, under modified rule, you will see HB 620, LC 570244. It is Blood Plasma Donation Awareness Day on February 17th. It comes out of Special Rules Committee. Blood plasma is critical treatment for immunodeficiency conditions, hemophilia, liver conditions like sickle cell, pregnant women and babies in utero with genetic conditions, shock, trauma, emergencies, and burns, just to name a few. If you go to the American Red Cross homepage, you'll see their call for donations today due to an emergency shortage. Of course, the whereas clauses won't be in the code, but it gives important facts and history on the importance of blood plasma donations. If there are any questions, Mr. Chair, I ask for the committee's favorable consideration.
Don't see any questions, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you to the chair, thank you to the committee. I present to you House Bill 138. Little explanation. Last summer, myself and members of this body, it's actually going to be on the first page. Last summer, myself, members of this body, to include Chairman Hitchens, Chairman Crow, Rep. Cummings, and a few others, went to law enforcement training together and experienced what we call scenario-based training with law enforcement. We were able to see the training at work and how it makes officers more proficient and reduces the liability for agencies across the state by constantly training with hands-on training. The benefits: this reduces workman's comp, reduces claims in general, reduces litigation, and it ensures that officers are less likely to use excessive force and be more confident when in the field by putting them in real-life environments in their yearly training. This is funded through the State Training Center. Codifying this ad will save local law entities money because they can get this training with the state mobile unit that goes out and teaches this with the mobile team, and it doesn't cost your local governments one additional penny. All this bill does is adds a single line, de-escalation techniques and methods to include scenario-based training. This bill is supported by the Executive Director of Post and the Executive Director of the Training Center as well. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Don't see any questions, thank you. Chairman Silcox, I owe you an apology. I think your bill is on the list. Would you please present that to us at this time?
Certainly. That's my mistake. I didn't see it. We're looking at House Bill 664,
Okay.
and it is all the way,
Bottom of 6.
yes, sir, bottom of the 6th page. This bill was brought to me by the Huntcliffe Homeowners Association in Sandy Springs. They are a really old subdivision. They were created in 1966 by Tom Cousins, and they do not have a provision in their covenants and restrictions to amend their covenants. So they would like to bring this bill to allow them to, with 80% of their landowners in that subdivision, with their vote, a supermajority, to be able to amend their covenants. And that is the bill.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Don't see any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Resolution 392, yellow sheet, 7th page, 4th from the top. Yellow sheet, 7th page, 4th from the top. Hey, House Resolution 392. what we're doing with the House Resolution 392, we're creating a joint study committee on the State Board of Registration of Used Motor Vehicle Dealers and Used Motor Vehicle Parts Dealers. Currently, they reside in the Secretary of State's office. Why this study committee is needed is to determine whether the regulation of the used motor vehicle industry would be best suited within the same agency that is responsible for issuing license plates that are essential for the operation of such businesses, which would be the Department of Revenue.
Okay, thanks, sir. I don't see any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Two bills. The first bill is House Bill 168 on page 8, number 3. House Bill 168, LC number 500978, is a bill to add an oversight step for the local delegation to reapprove the special purpose local option sales tax. And that's the bill in summation.
Okay, don't see any questions.
Second bill is House Bill on page number 3, House Bill 342, LC number 550582S. It is a substitute. It repeals advertising restrictions on low THC oil licensing. Right now, they have a full restriction of not being able to advertise. This allows the commission to set guidelines to allow the 6 companies that have heavy regulations to be able to advertise to their constituents.
Okay, we have a question. Is that Whip Park, is that you?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to House Bill 168, isn't it true that counties already have an extensive process for levying an S-plus tax? Could you help me explain why it's necessary for the state to now get in between the county and voters?
Absolutely. It allows an additional step for the local delegation to have communication with the county and with the local delegation to make sure that that additional penny that is being added onto the tax code is in line with where the county wants to go.
Is that an additional layer of government bureaucracy?
No, sir. It's just an additional oversight step.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Bonner.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm bringing you House Bill 632. This is on page 6, a little past the midpoint down. Page 6, House Bill 632. This bill comes at the request of our Department of Veteran Services. It clarifies the language regarding the exemption of occupational taxes and business license fees for our disabled veterans. It also updates the periods of war and armed conflict. The end result of this legislation is that more of our disabled veterans that qualify for this benefit will be receiving it.
Okay. No questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chairman Wiedauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bringing 2 bills to you today, both on page 6. These are 2 additional bills that have come out of the Blue Ribbon Committee looking at licensure over the summer. The first one, HB 630, deals with the used car State Board of Registration, and House Bill 635, State Licensing Board for Residential and Commercial General Contractors, both to streamline and less cumbersome licensure process.
Okay. No questions. Thanks, sir. Mr. Montahan.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, on page 5, let's see, we're about 5 down here. Have House Bill 504. House Bill 504 allows Georgia residents to purchase a vehicle value protection plan. Works much like gap insurance, except for it covers the value of the vehicle and not the loan balance. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions.
Got a question for you. Chairman Martin has a question.
Representative, we talked about this in subcommittee, and my question is, I had multiple meetings and didn't get back to full committee. It was mentioned, did we ever see a contract, what this looks like? Because as I understood in subcommittee, this money could never be paid to the individual that paid for the policy. It had to go to a dealer in the event they bought another car. I'm just curious, did we ever see what a sample contract looked like to make sure we weren't setting Georgians up for, a bad deal that was sold to them at a car dealer that would benefit the car dealer and the dealer would get paid for selling it?
Yeah, and thank you for your question, Mr. Chairman. I know you missed full committee, but I'll say this. In this bill 504, it outlines what they can and cannot do. This is just another option for folks if they want to buy it. It cannot be part of the sale. They can't require them to do it. purchase this as a, on contingency of the sale or anything like that. So, I do understand your issues, and you raised those in subcommittee.
So the question was, did we ever see what an agreement looked like? Did we ever see a sample
We're
agreement?
happy to bring you
That'd be great.
a sample contract if that's something you like to see.
Okay, thank you. Don't see any other questions.
Thank you,
Thanks, sir. Yes, sir. Ron. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm bringing to you House Bill 676. It's second down on page 7. House Bill 676 is a frivolous mechanics lien bill. Currently, the code is very specific on what is required in order for an entity to file a mechanical lien on a project. We are running into instances now where individuals are filing frivolous liens and there is no penalty. I've heard the stories now where they are communicating with the lawyers, explaining to them that there's no right, you have no rights to do this, at which point they've said, that's true, but we'll make your life miserable, and you'll be surprised how many people will give in. This will help small businesses and owners, and I believe a small piece to adding towards tort reform. With that, I will stand for questions.
Don't see any questions. Thank you, Representative Clifton.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir, Joe. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got House Bill 493. It's going to be on the yellow sheet, fourth page, about fifth from the bottom. House Bill 493 will designate the Piney Woods cattle as the Georgia heritage cattle breed. This cattle breed has history dating back in the state since the 1500s, used by many Native American tribes, a key part of the American Revolution and the Civil War. Not aware of any other cattle breed that would like to get this heritage designation, and it's got the full support of the Cattlemen's Association, so ask for your favorable.
Okay, we got a question. Representative Williams, is that you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author of the bill, thank you for the bill. A friend of mine owns several of them. They can absolutely live off of anything. You hadn't got to even drop hay in front of them. They'll eat a 1959 Cadillac.
Yes, sir. You're correct. They're very native to the southeast.
Thank you. Don't see any other questions. Chairman Deloach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 532 is the next to last bill on the very last page. That would be page 8. What this bill does is allow DNR to use grant money to pay counties for work such as road maintenance that they do on state property.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you, sir. Representative McCullum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. I bring bottom of page 7, page 5, excuse me, page 5. I have HB 555. This bill passed out of judiciary 15-1. This bill is giving Georgians a chance again to the American dream of owning a house. It limits someone from owning more than 2,000 houses and gives the Wall Street owners 4 years to sell down to that point. This will address the supply of the housing crisis in Georgia. I stand for any questions.
I do have a question for you, Leader Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How did you arrive at the 2,000 number?
I just, no really scientific method. I just thought 2,000 would be a number that wouldn't hurt Georgians. I don't want to hurt private entities, private Georgians. It's just really going after the outside Wall Street investors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, don't see any other questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Cameron.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I have HB 466. It's LC 620080, middle of the fourth page. This bill would name the Marsh Tacky horse the heritage horse of Georgia. They were once plentiful, used in the Civil War, Revolutionary War by Native Americans, but their numbers, because of disease, has dwindled, and the recognition by the Livestock Conservancy and other groups that we need to start taking action now, and this is the first step in recognizing that we need to preserve this animal. They're smaller horses. I could get on one without a step ladder, but they're good horses, and we need to preserve this breed. So that's the bill.
Okay, thanks, sir. Don't see any questions for you.
Thank you.
Okay, Chairman Gullett.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. Bring to you House Bill 447. It's page 4, just above the halfway mark. And what this bill does is gives prosecutors a tool to crack down on gift card theft by these internationally sophisticated criminal enterprises. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I just want to give some brief words.
Speak right into that mic.
Okay.
There we go.
Y'all can't hear me?
Yeah.
Good morning. All right, this is better. My mic was low. Well, I just want to say some brief words before I get into this House. Oh, it's House Resolution 40, which is number 2 on the list. It's a study committee, and I want you guys to understand how I came up with this resolution for a study committee. The storm that we had in our state, Helene, was very tragic. And I told my team, it didn't affect my constituents, but it affected Georgians. And so if you affect Georgians, you affect me. And so I wanted something to be meaningful and plentiful for the state of Georgia. So they came up with this study committee for reinsurance. And basically reinsurance is when the insurance company transfers risk to another company and call it reassurance. So most of our insurance providers in here know about reinsurance, and that's to bring the big guys in to subsidize the insurance when you can't pay. That's the gist of the bill. It's just a study committee, just trying to bring all the big guys here, study. The gentleman from the 112 passed the bill on the floor on yesterday, and I think the study committee will really help his bill to study what we need in our state.
Okay, have a question. Chairman Smith.
I just want to thank you for looking into the needs of what I call our ordinary citizens in rough times. So thanks for your idea.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, no other questions. Thank you. Chairman LaHood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 645 is on the bottom third of page 6. And this is a very simple one-page bill. Section 1 is the meat of it, and it's literally one sentence. And I promised Chairman Cooper that I would keep this simple, and that's what I've done. And what this does is repeal the requirement for long-term care facilities to test new residents for COVID and new hires for COVID when they're coming in. This was put into place in the height of the pandemic when much broad-scale transformation was going on in that industry, and this is just a return to normalcy, and the department's good with it, and it's something they're not enforcing now anyway, and most providers are not doing, and so it's just, like I said, a simple return to normalcy.
Okay, got a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Representative Miller, is that you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, over here. Hi. To the author. So you would agree that the elderly are some of the most susceptible of our constituents to COVID and other viruses, correct?
Absolutely am. And just to put this in context, when this was put into place, the requirement to test all new move-ins for COVID and new hires, there were visitor restrictions at that time too. Now the visitors traffic has returned to normal. These are residences of these people living in these settings. They're coming and going. There's 3 shifts a day of caregivers that are going back home. So a test is just a point in time that gives you some data at that point in time. It does nothing to quantify the ongoing risk of this virus. And so there's still safeguards in place. Physicians sign an exam before anyone moves in or anyone begins work. There's infection control policies. All the right safeguards are in place. This is just a simple return to normalcy.
Whip Parks.
Do staff or incoming residents, are they tested for anything else?
They are. There's a physician's evaluation report that's done, and part of that is a tuberculosis test that's been in place for decades. And then the physician signs off. One of the things the physician signs off on is that the
person is free of communicable diseases.
Is it not true that COVID is essentially endemic now, in which, Americans today are still dying from this, in which I don't understand why we're selecting one, especially when there is an ongoing process in which other diseases are being tested for. Again, I think to protect our seniors, I don't know why we're having this sort of selective, politically driven motivation in removing this requirement. Could you better help me explain?
Well,
understand
if you're making it politically driven, that's your choice. It's not mine. This is not a political issue. It's just a simple return to normalcy, and it's so that the staff and managers of these settings can focus on what's important. A lot of times when people are moving in, they're in a crisis situation, and so just even a simple 15, 20, 30-minute test is a distraction from other things that are more important. And if they're symptomatic, of course, the physician will catch that on the physician's evaluation report, and it'll be handled that way.
Okay, Chairman Martin.
Just real briefly, this doesn't prohibit them from doing the test. They're running the business.
Exactly.
They're set forth, isn't it true, to care for the people in their facility, and they've done that for years prior to 2020 to the best of their ability. This allows them that purview, does it not?
Exactly right. Thank you for that. And this is just a matter of, the legislature is not in the business of running daily operations of these settings. The department has a good handle on it, and they're neutral on this because there's the overlying qualifier of the quality and infection control and physician evaluation and all the other safeguards in place. This was just something that was done. It was a late add to Chairman Cooper's House Bill 987 in 2020 when the pandemic was raging and visitor restrictions were in place.
Okay, Pro Tem has a question for you.
So this was put in place also before we had a vaccine.
It was.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so, to be honest, I didn't recall that we actually put it in law. I thought it was as a result of emergency powers, but we put it in law. But we don't have it in law that one, for example, must be screened for flu. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And is it not also true that many more people in 2024 and 25 are dying from flu than they are from COVID? So, I mean, it would be consistent with other communicable diseases that we don't put it in law. We leave that up to best practices.
Up to best practices, absolutely. And it's very simple. I know it gets complicated in these settings because of just when you say COVID, it just brings out all kind of other thoughts and ideas, but it's very simple. And it's really a non-issue because the department's not even enforcing it, and providers aren't doing it. This is just a cleanup so that we're allowing providers and the department to focus on the priorities that matter most.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions, if you will, but let's be brief. Chairlady Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the factors is that the nursing homes across our state and across our country are extremely limited on the number of people applying for jobs, and they're short-staffed. And a lot of people that are applying for jobs to take care of the patients don't want to be forced to take the COVID test and want to have the choice that we all have now. So this should help them with getting people to work in the centers.
Okay. Good discussion. Thank you. No more
Thank you,
questions.
Chairman Cooper.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chairman Crow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to have three real quick. Top of page 2, House Bill 159. This would increase the outstanding bond limit of mortgage revenue bonds that the Georgia Housing and Finance Authority can issue from $3 billion to $6 billion to fund their mortgage origination programs, the Georgia Dream program that they run through DCA.
Don't see any question. What's your next one?
161, right below that one. Georgia Bureau of Investigation the director can currently issue administrative subpoenas for very limited production of communication subscriber information. This would add a couple of other crimes to that to include swatting and domestic terrorism.
Okay. No questions on that one.
All right, and then lastly, on page 7, about a third of the way down, House Bill 691, it would create the Georgia Resilience Office and the Georgia Resilience Officer position within the Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency. it'd be administratively attached to them. This was a result of a study committee we did over the off-season on disaster mitigation and resilience.
Do have a question, Chairman Smith.
Thank you. I just want to commend you for this bill, and also we learned so much on the study committee, and I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. Georgia no longer needs to be a one-act react. We need to be prepared much better than we are now. We do a good job of cleaning up the mess. We don't do a good job of preventing it the next time. So thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. No more questions.
All right, thank you very much.
Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Chairman Parrish, members of the committee. This morning I bring to you House Bill 535. That should be the sixth from the bottom of page 5. This bill is in response to the Kellum case decision that came out of the Court of Appeals. It's caused a little bit of a confusion and inconsistency in how we calculate time served. In almost all contexts, if a person is sitting in jail awaiting adjudication of a case in Georgia, the law dictates their time sitting in jail counts as time served if they're sentenced to more jail or prison time. This bill provides a very simple fix to the Kellum case and counts time served for probation revocation cases in the same way as any other case.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Saines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. House Bill 430, which is third from the top on page 4, does two things. Section 1 makes clear that if you are put on the sex offense registry in another state by moving to Georgia, that other state's decision automatically carries over. And then Section 2 clarifies that a sheriff of a given county, if a judge waives a restricted address, that sheriff has to be notified and has the ability to take that issue to Superior Court if they find fit. That's the bill.
Okay, no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Carpenter.
Thank you, Chairman. House Bill 237, page 2, halfway down. It's a bill that would protect creatives in our state that through music, film, or dance, that their words not be used against them in court unless in a pre-trial they can show that it meets certain qualifications. The second bill is on page 7, House Bill 689. It establishes the homelessness prevention program under DCA. Obviously, it wouldn't be until appropriated, but it creates a line item opportunity for our state to invest in homelessness prevention. We saw a lot of this with ARPA money, and I think the ARPA money is about to run out, so there's a conversation to be had if it's good for the state to keep people in their homes. And then finally, page 8, 328 is the SSO QEE scholarship program for the state of Georgia. It increases the cap from 120 to 140 million, and it changes some other things in there as well.
Okay, no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Persinger.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 627, halfway down on page 6. It's a straightforward cleanup to the Juvenile Justice Code, providing consistency between Class A and Class B designated felony definitions. Passed unanimously out of the House last year, couldn't get through the Senate.
Got a question for you. Whip Park.
Yes, I heard some concerns regarding this bill. Isn't this true that this bill will add to the list of crimes where a child can be prosecuted as an adult, and that child would then be a felon for the rest of their life?
This is a substitute.
Is there a substitute?
Yeah, that whole section got stricken out. This is just the original bill from last year that passed unanimously out of the House. All we're doing is striking. If you look on line 12 and 13, striking provided that such deadly weapon is not a firearm. That's all this bill does.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Chairman Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here to present to you House Bill 376, which is on the last page of the blue sheet. This increases the cap on Georgia's historic rehabilitation tax credit from 30 to 50 million. This bill passed the House last year 162 to 5 and got held up on the Senate. And I just want to thank Chairman Blackman and Chair Williamson on their help on this bill.
Okay, no questions. Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe I've already presented 370, 295, and 246, but on page 2, House Bill 288, this is a bill that will provide some due process for law enforcement if they're put on what's called a Brady or Giglio list. A prosecutor can basically single-handedly put a law enforcement officer on one of these lists that could single-handedly ruin a law enforcement officer's career. And so we've worked with PAC and about every group interested in this issue. I think we've got a good bill that provides due process for law enforcement that will go through post and provide much needed due process for our officers.
Okay, have a question for you. Representative Evans, is that your?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, 2 questions. One was wondering what brought this about, what situation, who was harmed, why we're here, and then secondly, does any other state provide this extra level of protection for law enforcement?
Sure. So there have been multiple examples across the state of officers being put on these lists. In fact, since I've introduced this bill, I've actually gotten calls from spouses and officers saying how this has single-handedly ruined their career. They haven't been able to get another job because they've been put on these lists. And again, there's no way to get off it. There's no way to prove that they didn't do something wrong. And so there are multiple examples here in Georgia. There have been a handful of states that have passed similar legislation.
Which states?
Just off the top of my head, I know Iowa, North Carolina, just in recent years. There's several others, though.
If you could let us know about that, I'd appreciate it. And then why no concerns for any other people that might be put on this list whose reputations could be harmed? Or why are we singling out?
Say that again. Sorry, say that again.
The list, as I understand, I don't practice criminal law, but the list says that there's some reason to doubt the credibility of the witness. Am I understanding that right?
That's right.
Anybody who gets on this list, I would imagine, is
Only
not happy about it.
Only law enforcement can be put on the list.
Only law enforcement.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Representative Miller, you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, the federal system has a list of officers or maintains a list of officers whose credibility has been questioned, and they have a policy of not using those officers under certain circumstances. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
And is the motivation for that, to your understanding, that prosecutors want to encourage law enforcement officers who are a special class of witnesses in criminal cases to be honest, to not lie under oath, to not withhold exculpatory evidence, and to not do things that would otherwise jeopardize a valid prosecution?
Absolutely. That's the point of these lists. I think it's important that you have that a prosecutor maintains the ability to use this, and it's actually a Supreme Court ruling that ensures it. But I do think it's important, as you know, if a law enforcement officer is never used in a criminal case, and their work is going to become irrelevant pretty quick. And some officers, any arrest they make now are just being thrown out because the prosecutor can't call them to the witness stand. So what's important here, this again takes it out of the court system, it moves it all to post. I think it's also important to note that this is an opportunity, whereas right now, if an officer is put on such a list, it's not reported to post, it's not reviewed. This will ensure if an officer actually did do something wrong, or if they've said something that's untrue, that it'll be investigated and it will stay in their files. So this will also help us ensure that if there's an officer who's done something wrong, that they will be taken off the streets.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. Who will be doing the investigating? Other officers or
Post.
officers of the court?
Post.
Thank you.
Okay, have another question. Chairman Hitchens.
Isn't it true that they're denied due process and the arrangement is in place now, and what you're doing would give them due process to have an investigation and
That's right.
bring out the facts? Now they just go on the list and that's the end of it.
That's right. I mean, right now, a prosecutor can single-handedly put someone on a list, and there's no way to get off. All this does is give an opportunity for an officer to prove their case.
Okay.
And again, it will ensure investigation if they did something wrong and get them off the streets.
Whip Burchett.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the bill. Isn't it true that North Carolina, Iowa, and Minnesota have taken up similar due process bills for this exact issue?
And I think there may even be others, but certainly I know at least the first two, and I'm sure Minnesota as well.
Thank you.
You had mentioned, you've already discussed House Bill 370, have you not?
I have, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Prince.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Page 4 of your blue sheet, House Bill 483 provides protection for code enforcement officers while they're performing their duty.
Okay. Don't see any questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Sharper.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. Blue sheet, page 2, House Bill 259 is a bipartisan effort here to designate and recognize on the second Monday of each August as Local Elected Officials Day here in Georgia. Because I know we have a lot of locally elected officials, former locally elected officials here, and you know how it is to serve, and sometimes it's almost like a thankless job, but we want to show our appreciation for them.
Okay. We do have a question, I'm sorry. Chairman Smith.
I do have one question. Would you consider adding state elected local officials to that?
Say it again?
Would you consider adding state elected officials to that?
Well, you know how it is. When we're doing things for ourselves, they don't really like that. So we're going to have to just do the local. And for the record, I do have my tie on. Just for the record, my tie is on. Okay.
Okay. Don't see any other questions. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a coat at the back of the department. I didn't know I was going to be doing this right now, so I'm borrowing a coat, so thank you. It's on page 7, the 7th one down on it. I'm presenting HB 618 and LC number 520793. This bill is about requiring any seller of real property to make certain disclosures regarding flood damage to buyers. The way it is now, a renter, if you own a home and you're renting it, you have to disclose flood damage to a renter, but you don't have to disclose it to a buyer. This bill, this is the whole bill. It's one thing. Is that it puts a buyer on the same level as a renter. So that's what it is, and I appreciate any consideration. Thank you.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you, sir. That's it. Okay. Members of the committee have requests. Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the yellow sheet, 2 compensation resolutions, HR 118 and 119. These are resolutions that passed out last year and got stalled over in the Senate, and hoping we can get them across the finish line this year.
Okay, thank you. Representative Hughley, Leader Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for House Bill 490 on behalf of Representative Bazemore. And this bill deals with crimes and offenses as it relates to training programs relative to human trafficking for hotels. And we know that human trafficking has been a big focus here in Georgia, and we'd like to ask for that on her behalf.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you. Okay, Chairman Hawkins, is that you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the top of page 6, HB 571, licensing of radiologist assistants to increase access, and then lower down on that page, HB 629, remove requirements for licensed physicians with the AED.
Okay, don't see any question. No, do have a question. Chairman Blackman has a question for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the conversation with Chairman Hawkins thus far, but on 571, are we talking about the establishment of a new licensure? I just direct your attention to sections 334, 335, and 336.
We are. It's an upper level of radiology assistance.
I noticed.
And not a change to what we have now.
I noticed noticed that it mentions establish, adopt, examine, and a new advisory board. So,
Right.
Under the purview of the board. So,
Yep, right.
thank you for the
Board
answer.
medicine. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions there? Don't see any more questions. Thank you. Chairman Jaspers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the committee. On page 8, House Bill 248, the geothermal tax credit, it has a cap and a sunset. It'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, don't see any questions on that. Chairlady Dempsey, is that you?
It is.
Okay.
And my apologies, I have a few measures that have just gotten ripe and ready for the asking.
Okay.
So the first is HB 533, the Wrongful Conviction Compensation Act that we've worked on for years. Representative Holcomb has worked on this, and it's been a joy and an honor to work to try to take this out of our legislative hands. Along with that, that is on the blue sheet, I'm sorry, page 5-7 from the bottom, 533. On the yellow sheet, going along with this, would be page 6 at the bottom, 2 resolutions, HR 128 and 129, which are compensation resolutions. The House passed them out last year, and they did not get heard in the Senate. The next is on page 7 on the blue sheet, third from the top, HB 677, to help with the placement upon discharge of children from our hospitals and psychiatric residential treatment centers. Then also on the yellow, I believe I asked yesterday, but just to make sure, on page 5, 10th from the top, HB 567, teledentistry, to allow Georgia dentists and hygienists to practice outside of the office.
Okay, don't see any questions. Chairman Gunter, is that you have a request?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 5 of the yellow sheet near the bottom is House Bill 582. This is a Georgia Survivor Justice Act. What this deals with is individuals that have been coerced or forced into committing crimes. This includes not malice murder, but the various types of murders, all the way down to minor crimes. If they're doing time on it, that sets out the criteria on how long they will serve. If it's a life sentence, it will reduce it to 10 to 30. As I told the committee, this is not a get-out-of-free-jail bill, but this is to try and help these people get their lives started up again. So.
Okay, don't see any questions on there. Leader registration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Being distributed right now is a substitute to House Bill 579. While that's going out, I will just tell you all about it. There was a study committee co-chaired by Chairman Hatchett looking into licensing reform. Representative Matt Reeves has done an outstanding job working on that. He previously presented the Appropriations Committee substitute to that bill. What we've done is, in the interim, taken input from folks who are concerned about how interstate compacts, insurance coverage, and others may be impacted, or Georgia professionals may be impacted by this legislation. So the substitute that's coming out to you now simply removes what was Part 2, which dealt with registration of auctioneers, geologists, and hearing aid dispensers. That's no longer in the bill. What's remained is Section 1, dealing with what I consider expediting and improving the process for applications for licensure and renewals of licensures, really getting at the heart of the issue, and I think there's going to be continued effort to work on this in the future. And I'd ask for the committee's favorable consideration of the Rules Committee substitute.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Leader Frustration, I think I heard you right. I've gotten calls from auctioneers. They're completely out of this bill.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll entertain a motion to accept or do pass on rule substitute LC 550580S.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition? Don't see any opposition. It passes. Okay. Who else? have one. Yeah, 433. Okay, you got it.
Yes, this is House Bill 433. It's on your blue sheet, 4 down on page 4. This just allows, right now there's a gap in the GCIC information that the Department of Human Services and therefore the Division of Family and Children Services is authorized to access per Georgia code. This would just allow them the breadth of the information that's available on the Georgia Crime Information Center. I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Okay, don't see any questions. Okay, here we are. Hold on. Chairman Powell, did you want to present 467?
Much surprise, surprise. This is a Monument Protection Act. This clarifies some language that has never been clarified about who has standing on this monument movement when there's petitions to move. But the most important part of this is that it gives the local governments an option, a 90-day option. And that option would be if they wish to move a monument, they can run it in their the legal organ of that city or county, and they can advertise that they want that this monument is to be moved, and they're offering it up to interested parties. This gives them an option. If there's lawsuits that are filed in that after the courts deal with the matter, then they can still come back and offer it up again. The decision would be up to the local governments to do this. They could pick whoever they think would be the appropriate group to move this monument to. Tries to get some of this out of litigation and some of the bitterness that surrounds some of these issues in this day and time.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thanks, sir. Okay, we've got approximately 150 bills on our blue sheet, so forth. Obviously, we're not going to get to all of those. But what we will do now is set a rules calendar for March the 6th, crossover day. So we'll do that now. Under modified structure, House Bill 150. Move. Have a move second. Is there any opposition? It's on. House Bill 159. Move. Second. Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 185. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 288. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 460. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 484. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. 485. Any opposition? It's on. 494. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 529. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 530. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 549. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. All right, House Bill 579 by rule substitute, that's 550580S. Move. Second. Moved and second. Any opposition? It's on. 583. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. 647, House Bill 647. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. Okay. Under structured, House Bill 52. Move. Second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 111.
Move.
Any opposition? Have an objection to House Bill 111. All those that want to put it on say aye.
Aye.
All those that vote no say no. Ayes have it, it's on. House Bill 112.
Move.
Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 360.
Move.
Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 370.
Move.
Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 425.
Move.
Any opposition? It's on.